two tiger girls, Maya and her sister Malati. They actually are 3 years old and they've come to us from Dreamworld in Australia. And we are just going to show you around and see what we kind of do here in terms of their husbandry, their enrichment, their training, and hopefully you can enjoy and ask questions along the way. So today we have done a nice big clean in the yard. These guys get a lovely big pool. Tigers are incredible swimmers, so they do require a pool in their enclosure to keep themselves nice and happy and cool during the hot summer months. They actively swim. These guys do have webbed paws, so they do swim extremely well. Our girls are lucky enough to have a nice big pool as well as a giant moat with a waterfall down the other end of the exhibit, which they actively use and play around in. We are very lucky with our girls is that even though tigers are actually solitary animals, we have 2 girls that are still happy to live together. They enjoy playing with each other and spending time with each other and sleeping in the same bed as each other. So we kind of monitor that as we go. These guys are reaching an age where they would naturally separate, but luckily they still enjoy each other's company. So the way that we encourage these guys to keep a friendly relationship is to give them lots of enrichment, lots of interaction with their keepers, and lots of space to kind of give each other a bit of space from each other if they need it. Now we are going to go down and show you a bit of enrichment that we use for our tigers. Before we head off, that is our bungalow area. These girls have a lovely big bed with a heated slab for the winter portions. That's where our Jamala Wildlife Lodge is located. The girls can see into the area with the guests, and they do enjoy interacting with the public as well. So we're going to head down and we're going to show you what these guys do for enrichment. These guys also have lovely big platforms that we use to encourage them to exhibit natural behaviour, climbing, scratching, and just enjoying the sunshine. These girls love to sun themselves on nice sunny days. And we also have a bit of enrichment for them downtown. Today, for our training, we do a little bit of training in the den, and then we put a little bit of their food out in the yard just to encourage them to search and forage for their food. Inside, we've got a little bit of lovely alpaca fluff from our beautiful alpacas that have been recently shorn, and there's lots of lovely smelly herbs and a little bit of their favourite treats inside as well. Now it's really important with our 2 girls is that they have one each, so they don't share very well. So we've got one for Malati and one for Maya. Because Maya is our dominant animal, he will usually get to the enrichment first, and then Malati gets the leftover box. So that will probably be where Malati goes. But hopefully they love their enrichment today. We do provide them with enrichment every single day, and that can range from anything like presenting their food in different ways, hiding it, hanging it. Sometimes it's about all that scent or olfactory enrichment, and sometimes it's like lovely tactile stuff, so hay or mulch or sand. These guys do love to kind of roll around in those different types of kind of substrates and things like that. But I'm going to pass you on to Katie, who's going to explain a little bit more about our beautiful tigers before we head out of the yard and give these girls their beautiful enrichment.
Okay, so guys, we're going to head out of this enclosure. Siobhan's going to secure it up for us, and we're going to watch Maya and Malati come out for their enrichment. So stick with us. We are going to walk past the waterfall, which is quite noisy, so I won't talk while we're passing it because you probably won't be able to hear me. And we'll head up into their viewing area and watch the girls come out. So if you are just joining us, we are at Maya and Malati's enclosure. They're 2 of our tiger girls, and we're just going to wait for their keeper Siobhan to let the girls out into the enclosure, and they're hopefully going to interact with some enrichment that she's put out in the yard. You may be able to see just out in the yard here where I'm trying to point, there are 2 boxes filled with the girls' favourite treats and smells, so hopefully they will come out and interact with them. And you can get a view of their enclosure. This is the display area, which as members of the public, you guys may usually see the enclosure from one of this vantage point. There is another one up in our tiger territory area. And right in the background there, you can see our bungalow. Now, Siobhan did touch briefly on that. This is one of our tiger bungalows, which is part of our Jamala Wildlife Lodge. Guests that stay in this room are lucky enough to have the girls just outside their window. Their bungalow is essentially situated inside the enclosure. Now, the area that the girls come up into right next to the guests, they're not locked up in there at any point. They're free to come and go as they please, but keepers do make this a really positive area for them, so quite often they do choose to come up there. All right, so we've just got Maya that's come out now. So Maya is a 3-year-old female tiger who lives in here with her sister Maladi, who is also 3 years old. She's just going to head over to this box once she notices that it's there. Yeah, I think Siobhan has put some meat treats in here, but it's going to be in amongst the alpaca floof. So you're going to see her try and get that floof off the meat as she eats it. Now, Maya and Maladi, obviously they're 2 sisters living together. They are 2 out of 4 of our ambassador tigers that we have here. So basically what these guys do is they help raise awareness for their species. They're not part of a breeding program at this stage. They are part of our Jamala Wildlife Lodge. They take part in encounters and tours with guests, so people get to have that really up-close experience with the girls, fall in love with tigers, because how could you not? And we've just got Maladi under the slide here, just poking her head out. Come on, Maladi! So Maya's now digging into the other one. Hopefully Maladi will realise that there's one out here as well. So it has obviously been a minute since we've had people in the viewing area watching these guys. So we've obviously got her attention today because she's gone the last 6 or so weeks without seeing anybody standing up here watching her come out. Now, don't worry, Maya didn't get everything out of this box, so there is still stuff in there for Maladi if she does want to play with it and interact with it. Oh, they're going to share. How sweet. So I was saying we've got 4 tigers here that are purely ambassador species. They're not part of our breeding program. So we have the 2 girls, Maya and Maladi, who are 3 years old. We have Ravi and Baru, who are brothers. They're 9 years old, and we're actually going to head up and visit Baru shortly. And then we also have our Sumatran breeding pair, Arche and Dari. Arche is our male, he is 11 years old, and Dari is 13, and she is our female. Those 2 don't live in tiger territory, so we're not going to visit them today. However, they live closer to our first original main reception area. So she is losing a little bit of interest with that one. Now, Maladi has actually run up to the viewing area up in tiger territory. Now, obviously, it is going to be a bit of a change for these guys once we do start getting guests back in. It won't necessarily be stressful for them, but it will be something of interest to them. So it will give them something to watch, things to see. It will just make their life a little bit different. So almost by guests coming back in, it will almost be like enriching them, I guess. Some of our animals here, they definitely do miss the guest interaction. Some of our more social species, like our primates. There are some of our big cats as well. For those of you guys that are familiar with the zoo, you know that Mishka, our white lion, very much loves to see people around. So she takes every opportunity to see people. But obviously Maya and Maladi, they do like interacting with people as well. They're still quite young. So it will be great for them to have people back at the zoo again. So you can see that nice big climbing structure that the girls have in the yard. It is a good vantage point for them to be able to see out of their enclosure. They do like to climb up there. Now tigers, they've got quite powerful limbs on them. They can jump about 5 meters, so that's pretty impressive. Melati, who is under the structure right now, she can quite easily jump onto that first platform with no problems at all. So these girls at 3 years old, they are pretty much fully grown. So they sit just around about 100 kilos. And genetically, that's probably about as big as they will get. When we see Baru in a moment, Baru is much, much bigger. He is about 150 kilos. So he's about 50 kilos bigger than what these girls are. Now, tigers are pure carnivores. That means that they only eat meat. So they don't eat any vegetables or anything like that. Occasionally, you will see them chewing on some grass. That just kind of helps them with their digestion. And if they've got some bony matter or fur or something in their belly that they just can't get rid of, that grass will help them to regurgitate that back up again. Completely normal for a cat. It's nothing of concern. We've got the girls sharing. They've got all the alpaca floof out of the box now. And this is actually quite nice that they're sitting there and sharing. Alright guys, so thank you for joining us at Myra Melati. If you want to stick with us, we are going to walk up into tiger territory and see our male Baru. So as we walk up the hill here, we'll talk a little bit about tigers. So tigers are the largest big cats. A lot of people might think that that is actually a lion, but tigers can actually get bigger than a lion. So your largest tigers can get up around 300 kilos. Your lions sort of are a little bit less than that. So as you were looking at the girls, you may have seen they do have quite long tails on them. Their tails are about half the length of their body. They have very soft paw pads so that when they're hunting, they can creep up nice and slowly, so they're soundless as they move through their habitat. And something very distinct about tigers is they have that stripe pattern on them. So that stripe pattern is unique to each individual tiger. So there are no two tigers that are exactly alike, the same way humans have their own fingerprint. Hold with me a sec guys, we're just going to head into Baru's feeding area. Now it may just take a second for him to come over. Baru! So as I was saying, tigers, they each have their own unique stripe pattern. That pattern, if you were to shave a tiger, you will still see the stripes on the skin. Now that's not because it's a skin pigmentation, it's actually the hair follicles and the hair stubble that keeps that colour on their skin if you do shave them. It may just take him a second to come over. I don't know if he can see me. Oh, he's sitting in the shade. Come, Rui! Come on, Rui! All right, we may just have to stick with him for a second. He'll come over, hopefully momentarily. Now, Baru's just laying in the shade at the moment. Now, it's not uncommon to see your tigers laying around. They do rest and sleep for up to 20 hours of a day. So this is Baru, B-A-R-U, who's coming over to us. He's one of our two brothers that live here at the zoo. His brother Ravi lives on the other side of the fence where you just saw Baru laying. So both Ravi and Baru have also come from Dreamworld. They've been here for quite a number of years now though. And if you are a frequent visitor of the zoo, you might remember at one point Ravi and Baru used to live together. So tigers being a solitary species, the boys got to an age where they just decided that they didn't want to live together anymore. And so we did separate them. Good boy, Rui. Here he comes. So Baru here, he's actually the biggest tiger that we have at the zoo. So he sits around 150 kilos. Frequent visitors of the zoo may remember some tigers that we had here in the past. Now Bakar, who was a huge favourite, he used to be 200 kilos, so even bigger again than Baru, which is quite impressive. Now Baru is just eating a chicken drumstick. He's going to make really short work of this. It essentially takes him 2 or 3 bites and it is gone. Baru. Now you can see that stripe pattern on Baru that I was talking about, so that is unique to him. It's one way I guess that us tiger keepers can tell our tigers apart as well, is by the different markings on them. However, I find that they also have different faces on them. They look quite different once you get to know them. Now we're going to give Baru a couple of little chunks of meat here. Now as I said, tigers are carnivores, they only eat meat. We have a nice little chunk of red meat here for Baru. Now in a day, Baru would eat about 5 or 6 kilos of meat. In this bucket here, I only have about 1 kilo. So this is just a very small snack for him right now. He will have his main feed later on during the day. When we feed our tigers, we don't chop the meat up nice and small like this for them. They get a really, really big chunk. It's usually got bone in it. Sometimes it may have the animal hide on the outside still. And this allows the tigers to work at that to be able to pull the meat off and I guess work with that meat themselves rather than us chopping it up nicely. This really helps for them with teeth and gum health. It's important that they have that ripping and tearing motion. Baru! Now you may see as he comes up here, the size of his teeth. He does have some very big canines there. And that really helps them when they're trying to pull apart the meat that they're eating. Now see, I don't know if you might be able to see his tongue as well. If he pokes it out, see if you can notice it. Tigers have incredibly rough tongues. So if any of you guys have a domestic cat at home and you ever get licked by them, you might feel that it's quite rough, a bit like sandpaper. Now with your tigers, that tongue is so much rougher than your cat at home. It's like very, very coarse sandpaper. In fact, if he was to seriously lick at my skin, let's say like it was food, he would strip that skin away in about 6 licks. So very, very rough. Now this is useful for these guys when they're eating. When he's got a nice big chunk of meat in front of him, sometimes he may sit there and lick at it the same way we might with an ice cream or an ice block. That nice rough tongue is so strong that it will just strip the meat away for him while he's doing that. It's also quite important when we get down to the bone of what they're eating. Our tigers don't typically eat large bones of the meat we feed them, but they will eat the smaller ones, like the chicken. You saw that he ate all of that. But if it's a big red meat bone, he might lick away at it and chew on it as much as your large dog at home would, but he's not going to digest the whole thing. So he'll use that nice rough tongue to lick all the meat off it and get it nice and clean so he doesn't leave any edible scraps behind. So as well with this rough tongue, it's quite useful. Tigers, being a solitary species, they don't have anybody else to help groom them. So that tongue is very, very helpful. It's like a comb, so they can groom themselves with that nice rough tongue. Tigers are also not very efficient when they're drinking water, so those extra spikes on their tongue just kind of help grip that water and flick it into their mouth when they're drinking. Good boy, really. And you can see he's got nice long whiskers on him here, the same as a domestic cat might. Baru's are a little bit more impressive though, I think. Now you can see on his ears, Baru also has some white spots. Here you go, good boy. This can be used basically for communication amongst the tigers. Pretty much all your tigers will have those white spots on the back of their ears. If you're just joining us, you may have seen in Myra Malati, or if you are just joining us, you wouldn't have seen that in Myra Malati's enclosure. Siobhan was explaining that all of our tigers have swimming areas. You can see just behind us, Baru does have a very small pool. He does frequent that pool quite often. He loves to swim. And tigers are one of very few big cats that do like the water. They are very efficient swimmers. And in fact, they can swim for up to 6 kilometers in one go, which I thought was pretty impressive when I learned about that. So your tigers, most of them, well not most of them, a lot of them do come from quite warm areas. They're not very well equipped to deal with the heat. So one way that they remedy that is that they sit and soak themselves in water. So that is a good way to cool off. So you see we're giving Baru some red meat here. Red meat is a pretty solid part of their diet. In the wild, they might hunt things like deer, antelope. So lots of red meats. We also give them chicken, and Baru is a big lover of chicken. So like humans, cats all have their own preferences of what they like to eat and what they don't like to eat. So as I said, Baru, one of his favorites is chicken. His brother Ravi doesn't care about chicken very much. All he wants to eat is beef. Good boy. Now you can see Baru is very gentle at tongue feeding. He's actually a pro at this. Baru quite often will be the tiger that you may feed if you come and do a tiger encounter. He also gets fed on some of our other tours that we have around the zoo. So he is a bit of a pro. Now we might see while he's keen, I'll get him to stand up and you guys can see how tall he is. Ready, Baru? Okay. So when he stands up, see he does that quite gently as well. He is big. I'll get him to stand up one more time, and this time we maybe have a bit of a look at his paw pads. So as I said, they have very soft little paw pads that allows them to creep quietly when they're moving around in their habitat. This is very useful for them when they're creeping up on prey that they want to hunt. And now Baru doesn't get his claws out right now. He does have claws. They are all there, but they're retractable. So right now he doesn't need to have them out, so he's not poking them out. But if he needed them, he would just poke them out the same way a domestic cat can retract their claws in and out. Good boy, Baru. So you can see Baru has a little bit of a quirk. When I feed him the meat, he uses his paw to push it in his mouth. Not all of our big cats do this. We actually have 3 big cats here at the zoo that do. Baru is one of them. What's happened, buddy? That one's stuck. Jake, our white lion, does the same thing. And Archie, our Sumatran tiger, also does the same thing. Just coincidentally, all males, big cats that do it. Now, some of our big cats are quite tactile with keepers or people that they know through the mesh. We do not work in with any of our large carnivores here. The largest we work in with are our cheetah. But for things like lions and tigers, that can be quite dangerous. As I said, Baru is 150 kilos. He is a very, very powerful, strong animal. And even if we went in there, he may not necessarily want to hurt us, but if he wanted to play with me, that is going to cause quite a bit of damage. But in saying that, some of them do like us to be tactile with them. So Myra and Malati, the 2 girls that we just saw before, they do love to get scratches from the keepers through the mesh. Baru, he doesn't really like to be touched very much. Mostly it's the 3 female tiger girls that we have here at the zoo that do like scratches. The males pretty much just like to be left to their own devices. Baru, however, does really like the company of people. So quite often if I come and sit here with him, as you've seen now, he's just laid down. He does like to hang out with us. He's very alert to his surroundings, as you can see. He likes to look around and see what's going on. I've got one more piece here for him. I'm going to do it for you guys. So yeah, it's a friendly little kind of noise. Good boy, Lily. Now, unfortunately, all the tiger species are endangered. There is thought to be only around 4,000 tigers left in the wild. Good boy, Rude. And sadly, there's actually more tigers held in captivity than there are out in the wild. Tiger numbers have actually decreased by 95% since the start of the 20th century, which is really, really sad. Some of the issues that these guys are facing are things like poaching. Poaching is the biggest one for tigers. Tiger parts are thought to be very important in traditional medicine, and they're also seen as a status symbol in some cultures as well. So these poor guys are actually poached for their body parts. Another issue that tigers have is human-tiger conflict. So with the increase of the human population and spreading out through the world, we are moving into tiger territory areas. And so tigers are having to compete with humans for space, and because humans are taking that space, their prey items are also getting moved out of that space. So tigers start to hunt livestock because that's what's now in their territory. Now, this is a bit of a conflict with humans. They're killing the tigers, which is unfortunately not what we want. The third we said we had poaching, we had human conflict, and then habitat loss is a big one as well. So sort of with that human encroachment, habitat loss, tiger populations are becoming more fragmented. Tigers become isolated, which means tigers aren't able to get together to breed. And an individual tiger needs quite a lot of space. So one male tiger could have up to 1,000 square kilometres as his territory. So with loss of habitat, there isn't enough space for tigers to live. Out in the wild, so that we have the herbivores that they hunt aren't overgrazing the ecosystem. So they kind of help to maintain that balance. Now there are some really cool conservation programs out there that are helping tigers. And for the very first time in about April of 2016, we finally saw tiger numbers out in the wild starting to increase rather than decrease. So that's a really big milestone. And what is now happening is that tigers occur in 13 different countries. And these 13 countries have now all gotten together and realised that in order to conserve these species, they all need to work together to be able to do that. So that's how we've started to see the increase, because everybody's working together to help preserve tigers. Alright guys, so it looks like Bruce is going to sit here and chill with us. I'd like to thank you guys so much for joining us today. We hope that the zoo can open up again really soon. We miss having you guys here. The animals miss you, and I'm sure you guys miss being able to visit. I hope you've enjoyed our live for us today. Keep an eye on our social media accounts for any upcoming lives and videos that we may post over the coming few weeks. And I hope you all guys have a great day. Thank you.